Let's pray. Father, we thank you now for this time to come and share your word. We thank you for the lesson. We thank you for those that are gathered. We thank you for those who are assembling on social media. Bless those wherever they are across the land. We thank you in advance for the lesson that's going to go forth tonight. Now, God bless us as only you can. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. We will welcome everybody that's joining us online. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody that's coming in. Good to see you, as always. Good to see you. Good to see you all, one and all. I want to get myself straight now here. Where am I? There I am. Hello. Hey, everybody. Can you see me? I can see you. Okay. We are in the book of Revelation. This is a lesson that we couldn't teach last week because we just didn't do it last week, and so I didn't want to lose our place and skip over anything. So we're going to be in Revelation chapter 2 and verses 8 through 11. And tonight we're going to be looking at the letter to the church in Smyrna. Lady Bass, good to see you. Hey, Shay Blaylock, all of you all. Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. It's on your handout, or you can get it in your Bible, and I've given you some space on the back for notes and a couple other points that I've made in the lesson. And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. But thou faithful, be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Tonight's lesson, Smyrna, the poor, little, rich church. By way of introduction, Smyrna was located very close to Ephesus, the city of Ephesus, to the north of Ephesus, only about 35 miles away, almost the same distance as Smyrna, Delaware is from Newport, about 35 miles away. Very prosperous city. At John's time, it had a population of about 100,000. Nobody knows for sure who founded Smyrna or why or when it was founded. It got destroyed by a massive earthquake before the birth of Christ, but then the city got rebuilt, and it thrived. It was able to come back and thrive. Had a safe harbor where ships from all over the world would come and dock and distribute their cargo. They would try to sell their merchandise or buy their merchandise. And it was called the Crown City because it was surrounded by hills that surrounded or that resembled a crown. And so Smyrna was a prosperous city. It was known for myrrh. You all might recall when Jesus was born, one of the things that the wise folk brought to the toddler Jesus was frankincense, incense, and myrrh. It was like a fragrance, like a perfume. And so they were known, they were famous for myrrh, but they're also under great persecution. We'll talk about that in a moment. And so while they have this reputation for being a fragrant city, they're also become a fragmented city because they're being crushed under persecution. These people are under tremendous persecution, trying to live faithful lives to Jesus. And I think somebody here and somebody watching tonight knows what that's like, to try to do the best you can. Try to live right, try to treat folk right, try to do the right things, and find yourself under persecution because you're trying to do the right thing. I've often said that I don't remember ever having to deal with so much foolishness when I was out in the world. I really don't. Maybe I did, and I just didn't realize that I was tore up all the time. But I don't remember dealing with, a whole lot of crazy stuff. It wasn't until I made a decision to follow Christ that I find myself dealing with crazy stuff. But that's just the way it is. So let's talk about this letter from Jesus. Two very significant things should be noted about this church. I've given you two places in your notes to write them down. First thing is that they had a positive testimony. Positive testimony. Jesus sent letters to 7 churches. 5 of the 7 churches received rebuke and correction. Only this church and the church of Philadelphia are the only 2 churches that received no corrective words. And so the Lord had been watching them. He's been watching, as he is us. He was watching their walk, and he was watching their talk. And he was pleased. He was pleased because they were consistent. They were the kind of church, kind of people that Jesus could brag about. The Spirit of God could brag about it. I wonder sometimes if Jesus were to comment on this church or your church, those of you who are watching on Facebook tonight, would he have words of correction for us? And if so, what do you think that Jesus would say? Now, this is the time right here where you can be real candid and honest, or you can say, oh, well, I don't think he'd have anything bad to say about our church at all. But be real, because the same question will come back again in another way. But if he, I'll ask people on Facebook first and let them talk, and then that way you can get a hint as to which way you may want to go. If Jesus were to say something about your church, those of you who are watching on social media tonight, if he were to write a letter to your church, what would he say about your church? Let's see if anybody is brave enough to respond. I wish I had some Jeopardy music. I'd play it just to see who was going to go to Final Jeopardy. Big Sean, I see you there. You can't hide now. No, you can't hide now. That's why the Bears lost, because you were trying to hide. Who here on social media? Nobody's saying anything yet, so maybe it's a delayed broadcast for them. So I'll just throw it out here to us. What do you think that Jesus would say about New Galilee Baptist Church? Don't mention nobody's name, but what do you think he would say if he wrote a letter to this church?
You're robbing me.
Huh?
You're robbing me.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, robbing me in tithes and offerings. Now the treasurer would say that. That's a good thing to say. What else do you think? Deacon Trustee, what do you think he'd say?
Increase your love for one another.
Increase your love for one another. Yeah, that's a good one. What else? Evangelist woman, what would Jesus say about this church? What do you say, Jimmy?
Probably just shake his head.
Just shake his head. SMH. What would he say?
Oh my gosh.
Be honest. You can just be honest. Whatever I mean, everybody. There's no. First of all, you already know that there is no such thing as a perfect church. And if you find a perfect church, I've said it, and other people said it. If you find a perfect church, don't join it, because if you join it, the moment you join it, you're gonna mess it up. So, what would he say? What would he say? What would he
The
say?
harvest is plenteous, but the laborers.
Laborers are few. Brother Brian, what would Jesus say about this church?
Hold on.
Oh Lord. So they had a positive testimony. The second thing that should be noted about this church was not only did they have a positive testimony, but they had a powerful testimony. Powerful testimony. Your testimony is powerful when you can talk about how good God has been to you. That we don't have testimony service the way that they used to have it back in the old days. Glenn, your wife says we have some work to do. That's what he would say about us. Yes. Thank you, Sister Valentine. You're the only one brave enough to say something about your church. All these other folks watching ain't said a word yet. All right, that's okay. They had a powerful testimony. Huh? What do you say?
Not just on Sundays, 7 days a week.
Yeah. We got to have the powerful testimony 7 days a week. Jesus says to them in verse 9, look at verse 9 in your handout. And the Lord unto the church of the angel, unto the angel of the church in Smyrna, these things saith the Lord, the first and the last, he that was dead now alive. Verse 9, I know thy works. I know what you are doing. Amen. Brother LaShawn, you talking about the Church of Philadelphia? No, I'm talking about the church at Smyrna. Talking about the church at Smyrna because Smyrna and Philadelphia had a very similar report. Really no negative comments made about them. I know thy works, verse 9, that's what it says. Thy works refers to that business that accompanies a person's life. That's what the works are. If you're in church, if you're saved, there ought to be some works that manifest from your life. In spite of all the darkness around them, these were people who continued to be a light for Jesus in the midst of an ever-darkening world. So they were not intimidated by their enemies. They were not frightened by the haters or the opponents. They proved that they were genuine in their faith by the way they carried themselves in society. And let me just remind you that people on the outside of the church are watching us. They see us. You go dressed up and leave the house on Sunday morning. You know.
He's going somewhere.
He's going someplace.
Early in the morning.
Early in the morning carrying the Bible. You know, you're going someplace. And they're watching you. They are watching you to see how you behave. I noticed something yesterday that I probably should have noticed a long time ago, and I just never did it. I just never paid much attention to it. But one of my neighbors actually said it to me. I was on my way to the homegoing service for Reverend Dorman's brother, and he saw me on my way to my car, and they said, "On your way to church again?" And I said, "How you know that?" Well, I had a collar on. I said, "Oh yeah,
Church clothes.
I guess so. I got my uniform on. Yeah. On your way to church again."
Oh my God.
You know, they didn't ask. I really should have said, "Yeah, why don't you come along with me?" But I said, "No, I'm going to a funeral." That probably wouldn't work out too well. But their testimony was powerful because they stayed the course. Tell your neighbor you got to stay the course. Stay the course. They stuck to the task of glorifying God. They were a consistent church. Individually, we need to ask ourselves, what do our works say about us as church folk, as church members? What do your works say about you as an individual? In a world like ours, a world that's darkness and wickedness and opposition to everything, there is a tendency to back off of the Christian message and tone things down, because that's the new watchword these days. We don't want to offend nobody. And as a result, you know, some of the world going to hell in the handbasket because we don't want to offend nobody. So we don't, as the words used to say, the phrase, we don't call sin no more.
Well,
We call them up with all kinds of names, alternative lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the church has become, of the 21st century in many places, has become, it's your thing, Baptist Church. It's your thing, Methodist Coast. Do what you want to do, Church of God in Christ. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Whatever you want to call it. We've moved within the walls of the building where we are safe from our enemies and critics of the truth. That's why we don't want to go out. We got a Bishop Townsend, when he was here not long ago, said something that was so profound that if you don't evangelize, you'll fossilize. Turn into a fossil, piece of rock, petrified church folk, because they have stayed in one place. That's what happens to things when you bury them, and they stay in the ground for a long time. I grew up in an area where they had a lot of farms and a lot of cows, and every once in a while, we'd be digging, getting ready for the garden, and we find some petrified cow manure. I never knew such a thing existed. Petrified cow manure, hard as a rock. It wasn't hard when it came out. You know, you didn't want to touch it when it came out. But we used to take pieces of it and break it off and use it in slingshots. Couldn't smell it. It was hard as a rock. Could knock a bird or something out. Petrified cow manure. That's the petrified church folk because they've been stuck in the same place for a long time. And so what we fail to see is that we cannot impact the world. Put this in your notes. We cannot impact the world if we never confront the world. If our message is maintained within the walls of the church and is never shared with a lost and dying world, we'll never make a difference for the glory of God. And so we've got to step, ladies and gentlemen, out of our comfort zone and re-enter the world with a message of salvation. A message of salvation. Now, you got to be trained to do that. You got to be trained to do that. That's one of the things that I'm praying that we are able to focus on going into the new year. And because I've had some conversation with the ministerial staff and some others about engaging this community. That's what I want to do in 2020. Lord, let me see it. Engage this community. Because here in Belvedere, I've noticed, us included, none of these churches are engaging this community. We all come together on Sundays and have our little churches and our little services and close our doors and get inside and they shout all to be dog. But we're not engaging. How do you engage the community? I'll throw that out. How do we engage the community?
invite them to service.
Invite them to come to
Invite
service.
them to programs that we have.
Yeah.
Knock on their doors. Like
Knock on their doors. Jehovah's Witnesses. Knocking on the doors. Multicultural things. Here in Belvedere, we've got all kinds of Hispanic, Mexican folk. Tonight, when I was waiting tonight, I hadn't eaten much today, except a fish sandwich that I got from McDonald's, and I was sitting here thinking, you know what, I gotta get something to eat before Bible study, and I went up to the, I don't even know the name of the place.
Ab Jones?
No. What's that road going past? You get up 141, you go up the hill, and you go past Simpson. What is the name of that street? Anybody know?
Boxwood.
Boxwood Road?
Boxwood.
All right, so I went that way, and there's a little store over there next to the laundromat, and it's run by the Mexican people. Okay. And I went in there tonight because I'd been in there before, and I could smell some food, and I said, you know, I'll go over there and get me something to eat. And I went in, and I was amazed. Only one person in there spoke English. Only one person spoke English. I do speak Spanish, but my Spanish wasn't all that.
That's what you said?
That.
That's what you said?
I went in there to get. At first, I thought I wanted empanada, which is fried
Yeah, we
banana.
know. So you said, you pointed to what you wanted?
Yes, because the lady was trying to take the order, and she couldn't hardly understand me, and I couldn't hardly understand her. She's got a pad in her hand trying to write it down, but she ain't understanding me, and I ain't understanding her, and and I'm thinking, wow, this is not gonna go well. So I saw a picture, and I said, I want that, and she said, okay.
So did you get
She
that
said
when she
she
finished?
did ask me chicken or beef,
She said that in English.
and I said beef. Well, what it was, I was getting tacos. They prepare them. They got a grill, prepare them right there. Tortilla goes on the thing, bam. Lettuce is made of bam. Beef, turkey, chicken, bam, bam, right on the thing.
Was it good?
Not hard taco, but they on the grill, and so they come out kind of brown, soft taco, and then I wish I had it, I'll show it to you. She comes back in the bag, and she holds up 2 little containers, and she can't speak English. And all she says is and I said, yeah. Put it in the bag, 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 put it in the bag. I brought it back here, got my soda, opened it up, and I said, okay, little containers, I don't know. Both smell the same. Let me put this one on here. Oh my God! I took the red one, and the red one was so hot, I said, wow. The green one was perfect. But then I sat here and I thought, wow, that's an opportunity for ministry. We need to go up there. We'll send some folk up there. Listen, go on up there.
How are you going to speak to them? They
Go
don't
up there.
understand
You got
English.
pictures. Point it. Give me that. That.
How are we going to speak to them about inviting them to our church, about Christ, about being saved? They ain't got pictures of
The way a church can do that,
You have to get
is
in
to
the
find
church
somebody in the community who speaks English.
Yeah.
And they say, listen, we try to engage the community. We want to do something here, engage the community. And I want you all to come and engage the community with us. And that's how they'll come. I mean, that's how they come. I just had a conversation up the street with a guy who's building a house. The house is gorgeous. It's got, when it first went up, I think, man, it's got stone all on it.
Oh,
He's got
that's
different
pretty.
color lights on it. And when it lights up at night, it's gorgeous. And I stopped one day just to say, hey, man, I just want to tell you how much I really admire your work. He spoke perfect English.
Hispanic?
Yes. And I said, listen, by the way, I pastored down the church down the street. He said, I want to go to church. I haven't been going to church. I want to go to church. And I think, okay, I got to do something now to make sure that we can deal with him. That's how you engage the community. And I pray that we're going to be able to do that going into 2020 and get some folk in the community. We may have some people in here that look totally different than us.
We used to fellowship with the
Yeah,
Hispanic
yeah.
church, and they used to bring
Yeah.
interpreter, and it was a beautiful
Yeah.
service.
So-
English and Spanish.
We need to publicly proclaim without fear the saving gospel of Jesus the Christ. We need to take a stand. That was Paul's desire. Put your finger in Revelation 2. Let's go to Philippians chapter 3 and verses 8 through 10. I think I put that right. I hope it's not Philemon, but I think it's Philippians chapter 3. Verses 8 through 10. Whoever finds that, can you please read that for us? Hey, Mother, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you all.
Ye doubtless, and I count all things but loss. That's where you want it?
Read it. Let me hear it.
For the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Christ.
Yeah.
Found in him, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Christ, the righteousness which is of God by faith.
Paul wanted to testify about how good God had been to him and how he became Paul and not Saul, and that ought to be our desire to tell people, listen, you don't have to go into all the details about your life and all the stuff that you did that may have been foul. Just say, listen, let me holler at you. Let me help you. Come to church. Because you'd be surprised how many people are just waiting for an invitation. They're too scared to come in by themselves, but they said, well, I know Tom Hudson told me to come, and I know what Tom used to do. Jimmy Cooper asked me to come. I know Jimmy. Them guys are in church. Maybe might be something going on down there. We're gonna check it out. Check it out. If we would be a powerful witness for Jesus, then we could live out our profession regardless of the public and personal cost. And so these folk in Smyrna walked with Jesus, but they paid a terrible price for their faith. Every one of them were persecuted. And Jesus' disciples were the same. With the exception of John, they all died a horrible death for their testimony. A couple of them got crucified upside down and burned at the stake and all these things. Down through the years, 70 million believers have died for their faith in Jesus. Think about that. 70 million believers have died for their faith in Jesus. And the question is, would you be willing to do that? I heard on the news last night that the FBI picked up a guy that had a plot to blow up a Jewish synagogue. And he was a white supremacist. And he said his mission was, his thought was, to start a holy race war. And so the FBI trapped him, gave him some fake dynamite. And he said, yeah, this is a thing of beauty. And they got him that way. This is the kind of world in which we live. And the question is, how far are you willing to go, for your faith? I mean, it's easy to say I will, but then to do the works that are necessary to prove that you are a disciple of something else. And it's difficult, kind of really, for us to imagine what it really is to suffer for Jesus the Christ. It's hard. The only person here probably right now could identify with that is Tom Hudson, to keep using an example. Suffering for Jesus. We can't even call him a walking deacon right now. He's a lipping deacon. Bad wheel. But this letter indicates here in Revelation chapter 2 that we ought to be willing to suffer. In the New Testament times, persecution usually came from the pagans, from the Roman authorities. But for Smyrna, it was emanated from some in the Jewish community, and thus they are called a synagogue of Satan. You see that in verse 9? It's also in chapter 3 in verse 9. Verse 9 tells us that they were suffering at the hands of the Jews for 3 reasons. Here's some more notes for you. One, they suffered, suffering 3 things. They number one, they suffered persecution. What did the people of Smyrna do? Why did they hate them so much? Here are the reasons. I'll try to do this slow so you can get it in your notes. First of all, the Jews and the pagans accused the Christians of being cannibals. Cannibals.
What's that, Royce?
Cannibals?
Oh, gosh.
Cannibals is somebody that eats people. Why would they accuse him of that? What in the Baptist church could cause somebody to think that we were cannibals? What practice? Communion. The communion. Because we talk about eating the body and drinking the blood. And so the Jews got it twisted. They got the game wrong. And they accused the Christians of cannibalism. And because they talk about in the ritual those things. Go to 1 Corinthians, if you will, chapter 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 24 through 26. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 24 through 26. Somebody read that, please.
And when he had given thanks, he
Mhm.
broke it and said, "Take, eat. This is my body,
My body.
which is broken for you.
Yeah.
This do in remembrance of me." After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, "This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do you as often as you drink it in remembrance of me."
Yeah. So the Jews and the pagans accused Christians, number one, of cannibalism. Secondly, when Christians gathered, they'd often hold what was called the agape feast, or the agape feast. That word agape means love. The love feast. Nothing more, if you will, than fellowship with the believers, enjoying one another's company. But the Jews, some of the Jews, accused the Christians of engaging in orgies.
Oh my
Yeah, engaging in orgies, because we had the love feast. Well, it must be, and you know, I mean, that to some degree they may be hitting right in the 21st century on some crazy stuff going on here. And then thirdly, the Christians were hated because their beliefs and their practices sometimes split families. Read us one more find Matthew chapter 10, please. Verses 34, 35, and 36. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, 35, and 36. Those of you who are coming in late on social media, we're looking at the letter to the church at Smyrna, Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. The lesson is titled, The Poor Little Rich Church. Matthew chapter 10, verses 34 through 36. Christians were hated because their beliefs and practices sometimes split families. What does it say?
Matthew 10, 34, 35, and 36 reads, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth.
Mm-hmm.
I came not to send peace, but a sword.
Mm-hmm.
For I am come to set a man at variance against his father,
What?
and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household."
Now, Jesus wasn't talking about intentionally coming in to bust up the family and say, look, father need to fight this child, the son need to fight the dad. If you hear up in my house, you know that ain't gonna work. Somebody's funeral gonna be preached real quick. It won't probably be the child. But what he was trying to say was that there was going to become in the household sometimes when being a Christian is going to mean that you're going to be in opposition of some stuff. If you were a child and mom and dad wasn't living worth a plug nickel and you got your relationship with Christ, that might cause a little bit of friction. That still happens in the 21st century with sometimes with husbands and wives, where the wife is very religious and devout about going to church, and the husband ain't feeling it, and so it causes some problems. So thus, Christians, by the Jews and the Romans, some of them were accused of being anti-family. Number 4, Christians were accused of being atheists because they did not worship the many gods of the pagans, because they worship one God. They didn't want to subscribe to multiple gods, little gods, God with a little g, because the pagans believed had all these little gods here and there. Baal was a little god, and the thing about these, they had these little idols, and so if you wanted a favor from this idol god, you had to put him on a wagon and haul him over here. And there was a big mess with Elijah, or Elisha, one of those, where the heathen had an idol. I think it was Dagon, one of those. And one morning they woke up and he had been knocked off the pedestal he was on, and his arms and their legs and everything was broke off. So the Christians were accused. So many of the natural disasters and the calamities were blamed on the Christian for incurring the wrath of the little gods. And then finally, the Christians were accused of being political enemies of Rome because they refused to say that Caesar is Lord. Listen, in the 21st century, we're in a tough spot right now because we've got some political people. I'm not going to mention no names, but one or two of them, especially one in particular, whose hair is orange, that's all I'm going to say, has said he's the chosen one.
He said
He said he's the chosen one. And now we have some,
Chosen one to do what?
the chosen one, the one to save us.
He said he's the only one.
He's the only one.
But he was talking about bringing peace with North Korea, right? Did he say that?
No.
He said a lot of things. And now we've got a couple of high profile evangelicals who have now become very bold and saying things like, if you oppose him, you oppose God. And so now the evangelicals and the right wing and the left wing folks, you know, there's a whole new thing going on with it's hard to differentiate who is what, because the real church, the real Christian folk are not standing up to be counted the way they ought to be counted. You can't tell, you know, who are you? And so they face persecution, and then they face poverty. They face poverty. That's the second thing. The word poverty means being absolutely destitute. These poor people had nothing of the world's goods because of their relationship with the Lord. Nothing of the world's goods because of their relationship with the Lord. And the Bible speaks that in the last days, it's going to become that way. For the Christian, you're not going to be able to do this, that, or the other thing unless after the rapture you get the mark of the beast. And of course, I've said many times, if you miss the rapture, you out the game. I don't think you're gonna get in on the second one because you're already left, and all your other friends who were Christians have been caught up and they're gone. So now the only way you can get food and water and the essentials of life is to get the mark. And my daddy used to say, you will know how bad off you are when you start getting them missed meal cramps. Missed meal cramps.
Well, now I don't want to get into that.
No, go ahead. We got time.
That will be left behind. If you get left, do you actually get a mark? I think
We don't really know. Nobody really knows what that mark is. It's some say it's symbolic. The mark of the beast is something that's symbolic. I don't know or believe necessarily that, you know, the mark, everybody walk around with 3 6s on their forehead. I don't know. That's possible. I mean, there are some who have speculated that the mark, the New World Order mark, will be a barcode. I know in some places, even now, they have electronic chips that are being embedded into people's skin. And they say that's going to be the way that you're going to be able to buy and sell. Just wave your hand in the air, or wave your hand across the thing. And you already have that technology to some degree in some of your smart devices. I mean, I don't know if your phone is like that. My phone has facial recognition. If I lose my phone, you can't get in it. You probably could if you hacked it enough, but it knows me. And so when I pick it up, I can put a code in it. All I got to do is look at it, and if it knows my voice, it'll open. If like Chris tried it, it don't know him. I suppose if I shaved all my hair off, do my glasses, it might confuse. He might. Anyhow, so the technology is kind of already out there, fingerprint technology and all those things. So it could be. Who knows? Who knows? I know the world has become electronic enough that there are ways for them to withhold things from people who don't play their game. I mean, they could give an example. How many? Anybody decide? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of us are receiving Social Security. I think in this room. You know, they could say, okay, all right, you don't want to go along with the program. Okay, we're gonna hold up that Social Security check. We ain't gonna give it to you unless you agree to do thus and so.
It's gonna be some stuff, Rabbi.
What do you say?
It's gonna be some stuff.
Yeah. There'll be some trouble.
Oh, Vietnam.
There'll be some trouble.
The great band.
There'll be some trouble. Trustee, we had years ago, dear friend, he's gone on to be with the Lord now. We laugh and joke about it every once in a while. But a fellow around Wilmington, Delaware, named Bill Green. And Pork Chop was his name. And Bill got a Social Security check. And one time, he made too much money. And they cut his check off. And so he went down to the Social Security office and acted a fool.
He was a fool.
And they called our house and called Bernadette because she was listed as some guardian or like next to kin or something like that. And the lady was like, she's like, ma'am, can you please come down here and talk to him? Because we, you know, so Bernie said, what do you want me to do? I'm at work. I can't do nothing with him. And she got on the phone, and all he could say, Brian, it ain't right. It ain't right. It ain't right.
Said it ain't gonna write if they lock you up here.
And he had to go on. But they can stop that stuff. They can mess you up that way. So, all right. Lois, Mother Blaylock, okay, I see you. So imagine how Satan, getting back to this letter and these people, imagine how Satan must have mocked these people as they walked down the street and whispered in their ear, see what you get for serving the Lord? And I would submit, ladies and gentlemen, that he does that even now. See what you get for trying to do right? And we even say that ourselves sometimes. That's what I get for trying to help somebody. But y'all won't do it no more. Yeah, they faced persecution. They faced poverty. And then number 3, they faced prison. Look at verse 10 of Revelation chapter 2. What does it say here?
Revelation 2 and what?
And 10, verse 10.
Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer.
Uh-huh.
Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison,
In jail.
that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thy faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life.
Now, the 10 days mentioned here might refer to 10 persecutions that the Christians suffer under the Romans, or it might simply mean that the persecution would be brief. When Daniel and his fellow countrymen were taken into custody and into exile by the Babylonians, they tried to get them to do all kinds of things that the Babylonians did, and the Bible says that for 10 days they didn't eat. They said, we're not going to defile ourselves. Y'all trying to get us to eat these pork chop sandwiches, and we ain't gonna do it. We ain't gonna do it, because that's not that's not kosher to us. We ain't gonna do it. For 10 days, they didn't do that. And so sometimes Satan will say to us, now, okay, fine. Okay, so you want to be a Christian? Mm-hmm. Let's see how you act when I put you on lockdown and I take away things from you. But again, Jesus says that I know about your suffering. He says that very beginning. We just covered that in verse number 9. I know the tribulation and I know the poverty. In other words, I know what you're dealing with. I wish you put that in your notes, and I wish you would turn to the person next to you, because you just don't know what's going on in their life, and say to them, Jesus knows what you're dealing with. Those of you who are watching me on social media, say that. Write that in your text box. Jesus knows what I'm dealing with. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to know, because I would submit, ladies and gentlemen, that sometimes we just think, you know what, God, I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand what I'm feeling, right? I'm trying to do right, but God, I don't know you really understand. You understand what I'm dealing with here. Come on now. But Jesus says, and if you want encouragement, the next time you feel like you out there by yourself and the Lord is not listening, your prayer's not getting you through, read that verse. I know thy works in tribulation, in poverty. I know when you don't have enough money to pay your bills. I know when you're going through trying to do the right thing, how you get beat up and beat down. I know what you're dealing with. I understand. And remember that Jesus took on human flesh so that he could identify with us and we could identify with him. I said it best on Sunday, quoted what an old preacher said some years ago, that Jesus was God in street clothes. The Word became flesh. Jesus uses the same word in Matthew 24:9. Somebody find that, please. Yes, Jimmy.
Why do you think he allowed this to happen to you?
All these things, tribulations, he allows it to happen to test and try our faith. To test and try our faith. Exactly why he allows it to happen. I'm preaching a message on Sunday, Lord willing, called An Offer That You Can't Refuse. And it talks a little bit about dealing with things that he allowed to happen. Some things God lets happen to us to strengthen our faith and help us to get stronger in our relationship with him, because he knows that he cannot at that particular moment give you everything that you want him to give you. You ain't ready to handle that. Some things we want to say, God, I need you to do this right now. God said, no. You ain't ready to handle what I really want to give you. I got to let you go through this process a little bit so you can get stronger, so you can appreciate it more. I can't give you. There ain't no sense in praying, Lord, I got a whole lot of bills. Give me millions of dollars. I can't give you no millions of dollars. What are y'all doing over here? Give you millions of dollars. Can't give you no millions of dollars. You're not ready to handle that at the moment. Yes, sir.
You spoke on that today.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I spoke in the lunchbox. Yeah. On a place called Wits End. That was the message today. I'm going to preach about it this weekend. I'm preaching it again.
Is that kind of like why he allowed Lazarus to die?
Yeah, he allowed him to die. Yeah, he could have got there. The disciples kept saying, come on, hurry up. Lazarus is sick, man. That's your boy. Yeah, we'll get there. Just slow your roll. We'll get there. And his sisters were mad.
Very.
Man, look, why did you even come, Jesus? We needed you a few days ago. You ever said that to the Lord? Why you even want? I needed you last week. I'm gonna separate you guys. Well, I needed you last week. You showing up now, and I done already had the funeral. They done cut the lights off. They done repossessed the car. I needed you then. Why are you showing up now? Here's why. Here's why. Because now when he shows up after the fact, he comes back now as a restorer. Because there wasn't no way you was going to get it back unless he made a way for it to happen. The lights got cut off because you didn't have the money. They got cut back on because he allowed you to get the money. They came and got the car because you couldn't pay for it. Had no business with it in the first place. Only reason you got it because you kept on begging me for it. And I said, okay, fine, here. And then you say, take it away, take it away, take it away. Take it away, Lord, take it away. Because it's too much. So sometimes, Jimmy, he lets things happen. He lets, it makes him sound like he's so sadistic. But sometimes I think he lets us allow sickness to attack us so that we'll know that he's a healer. We wouldn't even pray. You know, the devil tried to knock the thing over. Look at here. Sorry, y'all.
You really, the devil doesn't do nothing.
Some things we do, right?
Yeah.
It's still wobbly.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, he allows things to happen sometimes so we know he's a healer. You wouldn't watch this. I keep coming back to trustee, and I don't mean to pick on him. But you wouldn't know him to heal your foot if the foot didn't get hurt before and it came back. You said, well, you fixed it last time. You know, so.
Then he wants us to tell somebody.
You gotta tell somebody.
Testify
He wants us to
about
tell
what our
somebody
tests was.
what he just did. You know,
Does things and
he
act like he was supposed to do it.
Jesus uses the same type of language in Matthew 24:9. Somebody find that, please.
Yeah.
Michelle, read that. What's it read? What does it say?
Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death,
Mm-hmm.
and you will be hated by all nations because of me.
Because of me. Jesus, because of me. You're going to be handed over. You're going to be locked up. You're going to be executed. All these things might happen because of me. Because
But
of
go
me.
through it anyway. He's telling us to endure.
Because of me. If you ever have seen any of those Left Behind movies that Lady Wilmore, Evangelist Wilmore talked about, in the early ones, they were pretty graphic in showing executions of people, and they put them in public places. They had all the Christians in one place where they could watch. It was kind of like the same mentality of the plantation. You know, Mr. Charlie and Massa and them beat the slaves publicly. They didn't take them off into the woods and the woodshed. No, they gathered all of the slaves. All y'all, come on in here. Mm-hmm. Come on in here. Yes. Kizzy done run off, and we done caught her. And so y'all, doctors, no, don't do this. Watch what happened to her. And they whooped her. Yes, ma'am. Publicly. Why? To be an example to the others. Don't do that. And sometimes, and I'll come right to you, sometimes I believe that Satan lets certain things happen to some people. People looking at this and, oh no. If that's what happens and you accept it, oh no, I don't want that. What are you going to say?
I know God has a plan, has a reason for everything. Why do you think that he, well, nobody really knows, but hypothetically speaking, allowed blacks to come over, to be brought over, put in chains, and treated like animals? What was the purpose of that? Or weren't we guys, I mean, how could he have done that? He created us all. I always go back to that. I can't fathom that. I mean, just, you know what I'm saying?
Like,
No,
he was where we
I
were.
understand.
Yeah. Or if he was gonna
There
bring
has
us,
to be the
even
ins and
today,
twos that
even
we were.
now, we're still being persecuted. We're still all over the world.
Right.
And I know.
Some things I don't believe we're ever going to know the answer. That's one of those questions you got to ask Jesus when you see him. Hey, man, look. But I say that, and I say that kind of, sarcastically. But the truth is, when we get to heaven, you ain't gonna care.
We're so glad to be there.
I'm so glad to be here. I don't
Rejoice and you
want
ain't
to do all of that. I will say that while we're down here, there were some things that happened to us that I personally have said to the Lord, I know you're in control, but I don't think this is necessary. I don't see what I'm getting out of this. Yes, sir.
What about, like, some families? I don't wanna say the word inherit, but like, they go through the same thing that the other generation went.
Generational curses.
And that one will go through the same thing that one went through.
Unless somebody steps in.
It's like a curse is on them or something.
Like you said, like alcoholism at the father,
Yeah.
and a lot of times the
Yeah.
son
Suicidal.
Yeah, suicidal.
I believe that somebody in that family has to be the one to break the cycle.
That's what I told Ryan.
The same.
I said, somebody gotta break, somebody gotta stop.
Every third cousin, third generation cousin on my mother's side committed suicide. My mother's, I got cousins, every third cousin committed suicide. One jumped off the Delaware Memorial Bridge, one shot himself right up the street. One laid on the railroad tracks. And growing up, I was real sheltered, and I didn't quite understand all of the reasons that I was so sheltered. And found out later on in life that I was the third generation cousin. I was the one, unbeknownst to me, that if the pattern stayed the same, at some point in time, I would kill myself.
And you tried.
And you tried.
And I did. I tried. Not even knowing what was going on.
Wow.
And when I didn't, nobody else after that. Nope. And I don't know, but that's just my belief that somebody had to be the one, And so what that says to us individually, that we need to be going 360 degrees all the way circle, all the way around. We got to be the ones individually that work the works, put the glory out there so people see by our example. I don't have to be that way. My daddy might have been this, my mama might have been that. I don't have to be that way. And the generation that is coming after me, you don't have to be that way.
Part of this definition that I looked up, generational curse, is believed to be passed down from one generation to another due to rebellion against God.
Absolutely. It's the same reason that God allowed the children of Israel to wander in the wilderness for 40 years to get from Egypt to the Promised Land, a trip that should have taken them just a few days by our standards. 20 to 30 days. It should have taken 20 to 30 days to go from Egypt to the Promised Land. It took them 40 years to get there. Because they were disobedient. And God said, I cannot let all of y'all go into the Promised Land because some of y'all have disease of sin. And you are going to contaminate the whole thing. And so I'm going to wait until this generation dies before I let the other ones go in. And that's what happened. That's what happened. Let's finish this up. The ultimate grasp, the ultimate truth is that Jesus says to them in verse number 11 that they will not, if they continue to follow him, they will not suffer the second death. You all see that in verse 11, Revelation chapter 2,
Yeah.
verse 11. The first death may be at the hands of persecutors, but they would be raised by God and would never face the second death, which would be the judgment. That make sense to you?
Yes.
So, and then he says, if you do that, then you will be given a crown of life. Now, this makes a lot of sense because Smyrna was famous for athletic games, and so that would have reminded Christians of the wreath crown that was given to the best athletes and the best citizens. There's one more encouragement, and I want to let us go with this. Jesus says in verse number 9 that they are really rich. That's because despite the appearances to the contrary, they have treasures of God's grace and salvation on the inside. What's the song say? This joy. We've got a joy that the world didn't give and the world can't take it away. And when you have that kind of relationship with God, you have a richness about you that you feel, you understand, even though you may not have two pennies to rub together. But we can be proud. You can walk around with your head high because you have a relationship with God. And when you have that, you can have all kinds of stuff happen in your life. Be talked about, be persecuted, be left out, be not invited to be in the clique, and all of those things. But if you endure, he promises that you'll have a crown of righteousness. This church and the Church of Philadelphia are the only two that don't have negative things said or comments made by Jesus Christ. Anybody have a question? No comments. All right. Let's have our prayer and go home. And those of you who got late, if you want to lay eyes on it, those are our new church windows on that table behind Trustee Cooper. And we're pretty excited about getting those today. All right, let's have somebody praying and we'll go on. Thank you all for watching on Facebook. See you Sunday. If you have nothing to do, Friendship Baptist Church, 530 East 4th Street. I'll be there at 3 o'clock with the Voice of Galilee, and I'll be preaching there, and I hope to see you there. Bye-bye.